Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, I am going to be showing you how I made this beautiful two-piece winter and cozy loungewear. So if you want to see how I make this beautiful two-piece set, make sure to stick to the very end of this video. To make this set, you need a trouser pattern and a dartless bodice pattern. If you don't have one or know how to draft these patterns, I have you covered. On my channel, I have this very basic trouser pattern making tutorial and a dartless bodice and sleeve pattern making tutorial. So I'll put a link up here and on the description box so you can learn how to make this pattern, and I advise you to keep them as a block just like I do. So whenever you have to make anything related to trouser or dartless bodies, all you need to do is to trace out from the block and then keep the block as a masterpiece for whenever you have to make other projects. So now I'm going to trace out the front and back of this basic trouser pattern, and then I'll keep the block aside and derive to my joggers style from the traced out pattern. So once I'm done tracing out, I'll show you how I went from the basic trouser pattern to a joggers pattern. Here I have the front and back pattern traced out, and the first thing I'll be doing is to add to the crotch measurement. We all know a joggers is meant to be free on the crotch part, so I'm just checking what I have on my crotch line on both the front and back, and I'll add my waistband measurement to determine what I'll be adding to the hips line. So after adding all my numbers together, I'll be adding 10 centimeters, which is 2 inches in between the hips line in order to extend the crotch measurement. So to do so, I'll be slashing through the hips line. As you can see, they are on a straight line on both the front and back. I'll slash through and then add another paper in between to add the 2 inches in order to extend the crotch line. So if you ever have a trouser pattern and the crotch measurement is not like does not tally with your exact body measurement, this is how to extend the crotch measurement. So you cut through the hips line and add whatever measurement you want to add to it, and then reconnect the crotch line. So now I'm going to tape the lower part of the pattern to the paper, then measure the 2 inches I want to add to the hips line, draw a straight line, and then tape the upper part of the pattern on the 2 inches line. I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep saying extend, but I meant to say increase. So if you have to increase your crotch measurement, this is how you do it. Now I'll be extending the center line on both the front and back in order to match the upper part to the right point. So the upper part will be taped matching the center line on the 2 inches point, the 2 inches line I drew across, and I'll reconnect the crotch line and also reconnect the side seam on the hips point. And this is it. This is how to add to your crotch measurement if you ever need to. Now I'll extend the hips measurement to the waist because there won't be a zipper flyer, it's a joggers. In order for the trouser to pass through your hips points, you need to use your hips measurement on the waistline, and when you sew, you'll be adding elastic band on the waist to gather the measurement back to your waist measurement. So once this is done, next would be to get a pocket pattern. So from the waistline, come in 2 inches and take 6.5 inches slantly and then connect the 2 points together. That is the pocket. And now is time to get the length. So this depends on how deep you want your pocket to be. So from the waistline, I'll come down 11 inches and mark. Then I'll draw a straight line across. So now for the shape of your pocket bag, this depends on your preference. You can have it straight, you can have it curvy, it depends, so you can just play around here. So I will be curving it out a bit, and then once I'm done, I'll place another paper on top to trace the pocket part out. So now I'll trace out the pocket bag. Initially, you're supposed to trace out 2 different pieces, one which will replace the 2 inches we took in on the waistline, and the other one with from the 2 inches point. But I'll be tracing out one and I'll show you how to cut on fabric. So on this tutorial, I did not add pockets to my joggers because my fabric wasn't enough. And as you can see, I'm tracing from the initial waistline, and now I'll trace from the 2 inches point. And once you trace out and cut, this is how it should look. As you can see, I wrote ×2 on that part and ×2 on this other part. So you're supposed to cut 2 of these as it is like this, and then cut off that point, that part which is the 2 inches part, and cut the other 2 in order to have 4 pieces. So you used one of each on one side of the pocket and the other 2 on the other side of the pocket. And if you're adding pockets to your trouser, you'll be cutting the waist, like your waist point. This is what I'm about to cut. You'll be cutting, your waist is gonna start from the 2 inches point, but for me, I did not add pockets, so I later taped back this part to my pattern. And now I'm just going to separate the front and back, and I'll also extend the trouser bottom width before moving forward. On the trouser bottom width, I'll be adding 3 cm on both the front and back at the side, and I'll connect the 3 cm to the hip line using a ruler. And this is it for the trouser pattern. I'll cut off the extra paper and I'll move forward to the bodice pattern. And this is the dartless bodice and sleeve pattern. As usual, I'll be tracing out from it. The link to the pattern making will be on the card and on the description box. So I'll trace out the bodice and the sleeve, and I'll show you how I derive to my style. So on this pattern, the front and the back is together. The difference is on the neckline and the armhole curve. And this is the trace out bodice and sleeve. So the first thing I'll be doing is to tape the sleeve to the bodice, because I don't want the joining of the sleeve and the bodice to be on the armhole. I'm trying to add some parts of the sleeve to the bodice to give it that kimono effect. And once I'm done taping, I'll reconnect the shoulder. I'm just reconnecting the shoulder line to blend with the sleeve. And when cutting on fabric, I'll cut off the remaining part of the sleeve from that initial first line. And when cutting on fabric, I'll cut the back of my top first, then cut off the back neckline before cutting the front, and also cut the remaining part of the sleeve. So as you can see, I'm cutting on fabric now. I went ahead to shorten the top because the fabric wasn't enough, and this is how I ended up making a crop jumper or sweat shirt. And I also notch the points on the sleeve part to know where I'll be adding the remaining part of the sleeve. So once I'm done cutting, I'll move over to sewing. So here I have all my piece cut out: the trouser, the top, the remaining part of the sleeve, the waistband, and the rest of the fabric is what I'll be using to make the eye neck on the top. So now I'll start by pinning the front and back of the top together, like the shoulder lines together, and I'll take it to my sewing machine to sew, and I'll be back to show you what it look like. And this is it after sewing. I also overlock the raw edges. So next I will be sewing the side seam and also attach the remaining part of the sleeve. And this is it after attaching the sleeve. Everything is looking neat and clean. I overlock all the raw edges, and now I'll keep the bodice aside and move over to the trouser. So I'll be pinning the trousers together, and then I'll take it to my sewing machine to sew, and I'll be back to show you what it look like. And this is what it looked like after sewing the crotch line together on both the front and back. I also overlock the raw edges. So now I will be pinning the side seam together. So I'll place the front and back right side facing each other. I'll pin the side seams together and also pin the inside legs, and I'll take it to my sewing machine, so I'll show you what it look like. And this is it after joining the front and back together. Now I'll be joining the waistband. So I'll start by pinning the waistband on the joining part to the joining part of the side seam, matching the both joining part together, because you don't want to have the joining part of the band at the midpoint or any other part. So I'm just going to pin around, and I'll sew from the inside out, so the waist inside will be fully clean and covered. So I'm just going to pin around. I'll take it to my sewing machine, sew along the 0.5-inch seam allowance line, and I'll be back. After sewing the band from the inside out, before I sew it down on the right side, I'll be adding 2 grommets on the front of the band. This is to add drawstring to the band. And as you can see, I already interfaced the part where the grommets will be, and I'll be using this mini grommet tools to install the grommet. So now I'm just punching the hole on the band, and the holes will be 1 inch apart from each other. Once I'm done punching the hole, I'll place the grommet, the right side of the grommet through the right side of the band, and the back piece goes on top on the wrong side of the band. And then I'll grab the mini presser. So on the presser, the deeper side goes into the right side of the grommet, and the pointed part of the presser goes into the back piece of the grommet. And I'll hit the presser a couple of times with the hammer, and that is how to install the grommet. And I'll repeat the same thing on the other hole before sewing the band down. And this is it after sewing the band down. I left a bit of space which I'll be using to insert the elastic band and the cord. So now I'm just pinning the cord together with the elastic band so I can insert them together. And once I'm done inserting, I'll sew the elastic bands together, pull the cord out through the holes, finish up the band, also finish up the hem of the trouser. Then I'll move over to the top to sew the collar and the zip. Now for the collar of the top, this depends on how high you want yours to be. Mine is about 3.5 inches, so I cut 7 inches by the roundness of the neck, and when I fold the 7 inches into, that leaves me with 3.5 inches. So the first thing I'll be doing, I also iron the top so I can get the midpoint on a straight line. So now I'm just overlapping the collar piece by 0.5 inch, and then I'll place the zip to determine where the zip will be stopping, and I'll mark the point, then draw a guideline that I'll follow when sewing the zip. So the reason I overlapped it is because that the 0.5 is the seam allowance I'll be using to sew the collar to the top. So now I'm just drawing the line that will guide me when sewing the zip. So So now I'll slash through the middle line before pinning the collar piece to the neckline. So on the collar piece, I already notched the middle point and I also notched the shoulders point. So please, I need your attention on this part. I need you to sew and pin this first part from out in instead of in out like I'm doing, because I later unpicked this part and sew it again, because when I sew the zip on the front, I realized I needed to turn the zip in, like to cover the upper part, the collar part of the zip, in order to have a clean finishing. So as I move forward, I will explain better, but please sew from out in and not in out. And this is it after sewing. So this is what I was trying to explain. You see the fold I'm about to make, I need you to sew yours in a way that this fold is inside. So instead of sewing from in out, you should sew from out in, so the fold goes in. So now I'm just notching the point where the zip will be stopping, and I'll go ahead and sew the zip so you see what I'm talking about. Now I'll notch the triangle shape I drew earlier under the lines so I can turn the zip in before sewing. And this is it. As you can see, if I fold the collar piece out, there won't be anything to cover the zip on the collar part on the inside. So this is where I went ahead to loosen everything and re-sew it. As you can see now, it will be folded inward. Okay, so I went ahead to sew the other part of the zip, and now I'm just covering the collar part of the zip that needed to be lined up. And when I sew to the point where the joining is, I'll fold in the 0.5 inch that will be folded inward, and I'll sew that part down. So this is it. I just folded it in, and once I'm done sewing, I'll flip it in out then sew the other side, and then before doing the final stitch from the inside. And this is it. As you can see, the zipper part on the collar is now fully lined. So whenever I'm wearing this top and I have to pull the zip down, I'll be having a clean finishing on the inside. So now I'm just matching all the notch points together. I'll pin, sew, add my branding label, give it a good press, and I'll show you the finished look. If you've come this far on this video and you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to do so. The subscriber button is just in front of you on the right. Make sure to click to subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts about this two-piece cozy set. If you have any question, recommendation, the comment section is always open and I'll be happy to answer whatever question you have. So I'll finish this up and I'll show you the finished look. And this is the finished look. Look how clean and neat everything is looking. This is why you should stick with me on this channel, because I don't just teach you how to sew, I teach you how to sew like a pro. On this channel we pay attention to details, so make sure to click on that button to join this family. And this is me wearing the set on a very cold day, and trust me, it's very cozy. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.